we're on in an underwater situation. Feels like that to me anyway.
We are live. So, hello, and welcome to the Dads of Clojure, a conversation between four Clojure dads that you can join in live on YouTube. We're going to discuss a few Clojure news items and share our opinions on them. Then we'll jump into a REPL and code some exercises. Maybe not this time, folks. Sorry. But, we're getting there. If you're joining us live, feel free to comment in the chat and we'll try to address the questions. So let me introduce our panel. We have Mike.
Hello.
Ray.
Hi.
Mia. And I'm Eric. Hello. You can find the show notes in the YouTube description. So just click on those and you'll get links to the stuff that we're talking about. And we'll try to get to your comments if we see them while we're talking. So, who wants to talk first about Clojure? Did any of us go?
Well, I put the Ray into Clojure.
Oh, awesome.
Oh no,
I'm sure that was
the dad jokes have begun.
Oh yeah. That's what you pay for.
What's it like to be in Europe where there's like a Clojure conference every other week?
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to know which ones not to go to. There's so many of them actually. It's like once a month. Pretty much every month in the winter. It's like this Clojure, and then it's like London. There's Clojure X, and we're getting a new one next year as well. We're getting XT20 from the Jugs guys. So it's just I think it could be a continual circuit, So you got Dutch Clojure Days, you've got Clojure D in Germany, you've got the Heart of Clojure this year in Belgium.
Right.
You've got a Clojure Tray in Finland, and then next is Clojure X in London. Yeah, so it's a busy time. But I think Clojure Tray is really good. Yeah, I think David Nolan actually said to me, maybe it wasn't David Nolan. Someone said to me anyway that it was like it's becoming the kind of Euro Clojure of all the European conferences. It's kind of one of the biggest ones, and it tends to attract big names. So yeah, it was pretty good. Alex Miller gave a talk this year, and talked a bit about Spec 2.
Right, that's next on the docket.
Okay, well, I won't spoil it, but I mean, the actual conference is it's well organized. It's it's quite a big conference. Feels quite big. There must be 400 or 500 people there.
Okay. Was it held in an actual sauna?
It wasn't held in a sauna. No. Saunas were had though. Yeah. But it's in a sort of there's a conference center. They do a lot of conferences there, and it's like an industrial site. But it's not far away from the town center. Okay. It's a few minutes walk, really. And it's very impressive stage, impressive kind of like auditorium. And it's super friendly. Good, well sponsored, and lots of people were there, and sort of the hallway conference, if you like, and the social side are really good.
So you got to see people you knew before that you've seen before there, and a bunch of
yeah. And some people I talked to like on Defen, but I'd never met. Peter Saunis was there, and such a nice guy. Yeah, really nice. And Alex was there. Say hello to him again. Actually, I bought him a beer. It was free, but I bought him it. And the best I could do,
The best kind of buying someone a beer.
Yeah. I give it was a butler service, so I count that as like what do they call it? Not emotional labor, but sort of drunken labor.
Isn't that a thing that they have in the Clojure Tray every year? It's like a custom bottled beer. Is that right?
I'm not familiar with that.
No.
Oh no, there was cans of Clojure Tray beer.
Oh,
Yeah.
right. Okay.
It was cans this time. Yeah.
Okay.
But,
Homebrew cans. Yeah.
Is it homebrew or did they get like a brewery to
oh yeah,
just
this is
bottle something?
I don't know how the sausage was made, mate. You know,
Yeah.
so
Was it like a lager or?
it was like a lager. Yeah, I did
Okay.
try one. Yeah, and it was. But it was, you know, this is sort of off the conference part, but if you ever go to Finland, be careful because they don't sell you alcohol after 9 o'clock in the evening.
Really?
Yeah. So
Which is like prime drinking time, you would think.
tell me about it. Yeah.
You have to buy it at 8:50 and just stock up.
Maybe it's that thing where the sun never sets there, and careful about that.
They have to remind people, like,
But you gotta go
you've
home.
probably been drinking since 2 when the sun set, and so you got,
That's what they were saying. They were saying a lot.
Sleep.
The rules are to sort of to kind of have some kind of impact on alcoholism or the degree of alcoholism because I think it's quite high there. But of course, I think if you're an alcoholic, you know the rules, so you can buy ahead of time. But anyway, that wasn't really, that was an aside. But yeah, I mean, really nice, lots of good talks. They have I don't know what you'd call it, but it's like it's a 1-day conference really. But what's interesting about it is they start the conference at 12 o'clock. So you can drink in the evening, you know, it's excellent.
And sleep in. Yeah.
And have a good sleep in, yeah. And start at 12 and they go until about 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock at night. And then they have an after party.
Man, the odd schedule they keep there.
Yeah. And it's a single track.
Kind of nice.
So
Like
it's very easy to, it's single track. It's very easy to catch everything. And yeah, like I said, very, very high quality talks. And yeah, the videos are already up. You know, it's like 2 days later or something. It was crazy.
Did you go to the music performance talk?
No.
Apparently there was a lot of algo rave. I didn't realize that algo rave is kind of a Clojure thing. There was a good...
What is algo rave? Like composition of music? Or?
Algorithmically generated EDM music, basically.
EDM is electronic dance music, Mike.
God.
So people dance electronically now? Is that?
The computer plays music and then you dance like yourself.
You dance.
The computer is playing the music.
So there's no electronics involved in the dance.
I know.
Oh, man. So I would like to see Alex Miller dance.
Naming is hard, not Eric.
I'm over here trying to solve some audio problems. Apparently our we got some digital distortion and some lost packets, according to Timothy Baldridge.
I was sort of screwing with my output volume.
Yeah. So, folks, if you missed the fun-filled last episode, Google Hangouts has stopped being able to stream automatically to YouTube. Google Hangouts is still around, but you can't just click a button and go live. So we have a new setup, and it's different from last time. I have like a second computer here that is streaming, and yeah, we're still working out the kinks of all this.
We used to complain a lot about Google Hangouts, but man,
I know. We could still complain about it. I mean, there's no problem with that. We can go back to Google Hangouts for the video chat if we need to. Discord. We're using Discord for our video chat right now. But yeah, it's kind of a pain. Okay, so at the conference, the videos are up. I don't know if it's all the videos, but
yes,
I've been watching them, and Alex Miller had a talk, and in it he had kind of a tangent on Spec 2 with a lot of cool features of Spec 2 in there. So, has anyone else seen the video or the talk? Ray, were you there?
Yes, I was there. Yeah.
I was very excited about it. It looked like it solved a lot of the issues that people have been complaining about, including cases where people wanted like non-recognized keys to be a failure. The problem I've run into with using spec, which is the optionality problem, where you have what should be like the same conceptual type that you're using in different contexts, and it seems like, oh yeah, user always has an ID. Well, not when you first create it, because the ID is assigned by the database, and so then what do you have there the first time? And so then you need like a pre-registered user type that has everything the same except no ID. And right, so what they've done is they've separated it out into a schema, which defines all the keys that go in the map, and then there's no idea of optionality at that point, right? Because it used to be that you have the spec, the right, or sorry, the rec, the REQ, the required, and the opt, which is the optional ones. And now they've done away with that, and there's an idea of a context where you can say, these are the required keys in this context. It could be a subset of the normal keys in the schema.
And that makes a lot of sense because, I mean,
there's a lot
yourself pretty quickly. Yeah, that you like in this particular context, I need this subset of the keys right now. And
right.
It's like when you're building up the map the first time, you haven't created it completely.
Exactly. And then the only other option is just to make everything optional, which is not what you want either.
Mm-hmm. Doing a lot.
Right. And like he talked about how you can kind of manage it if you just have it at the top level. Like you just have a pretty shallow map. But once you start nesting them, and the nested things have optional things that you want to get rid of, and then those might have some, then it just gets really hairy. So I'm looking forward to that. I don't use spec that much, but now it's looking like something that I might actually want to use for a few things.
Yeah, we use spec a reasonable amount. Go on, Mike.
Well, like Eric, at the beginning, you had mentioned like revisiting the notion of rejecting unrecognized keys. That's been something, right, that Rich has resisted for a long time because it makes for brittle systems.
Right. And man, sorry, my screensaver went on. Right, and he talked about that, how it's not the default behavior, but you can actually pass in an options map to your like valid question mark calls, and those will you can tell it and like be strict on the keys.
Oh, okay. Like at that
so
point when you're validating, yeah.
Right. And so he's like, there are some cases that really make sense. Like you're talking to an API that is going to check all the keys, that is very strict. And so you want your output that's going to that API to be verified strictly before it gets sent. Things like that. It makes sense. You have to talk to the outside world and deal with systems that don't have the same philosophy.
Yeah, I mean, you're not always under control of things. Yeah, that's
right.
That's a good admission.
Yeah.
So you just opt into that when you need it. That's kind of nice. It's not the
That's
default.
right.
Yeah.
That's right. Like in that particular context, you want to do it. So Ray, I'm curious, from someone who uses spec a lot. You said you used it a lot. Like, what do you think about spec 2? What are you looking forward to?
Yeah, I think that's. I mean, the key thing is the compositionality. That's the thing that. I mean, we use it a lot for basically for defining kind of data types, if you like, and that's when you're like looking at a system that goes across like 3 or 4 different environments, it's very important, I think, to know that a particular message must be shaped like this from the client, and then some middleware needs to also validate the shape. And then some persistence layer as well, maybe. So there's plenty of opportunities for things to go wrong there if you don't have a common view of that data structure. So what we use spec to essentially provide some formality around that. So, and it's, I mean, to be totally honest, it's more of a communication device than it is. You know, we do validations and verifications on it, but I think we perceive it to be more valuable as a mechanism for communication at the moment.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know,
I
so
like
we all
the
look at what
composing
the,
stuff. Sorry to cut you off. I thought you were done. No.
Yeah, go on.
Yeah, I like that stuff. I don't fully understand it, but it seems like they've made a formal syntax that isn't just macro based for specs. So like, you pass a list that starts with an OR, and that makes an OR spec, as opposed to it just being a macro that generates some reify somewhere, which looks cool. He said that there's some solution for stuff like you have, let's say, a set of, like, your spec is a set of other specs, right? Or a spec of values, and so you want to validate, that it's one of these values. That it's really hard in spec to just add something to that set and have it also be a spec. So it seems like they're working on a solution to that, which sounds kind of interesting, where you can kind of just like throw stuff in a set to make it also valid. But I don't quite understand that yet. I haven't used spec that much, so I'm not sure if I would ever want to use that. But it seems like it's going to be a lot easier to generate specs programmatically without, having to make macros to do it.
Yeah, I heard that. Yeah. I think Ardem Reed that was on before, where he used to work, I think Mia, they wanted to do that kind of thing. I've never needed to do it, but is it useful for the Kafka world?
I mean, I just lost everyone.
We still see you.
Okay.
Keep going.
Okay, I can hear you now.
Yeah.
I'd have to see it to really know if this covers our use case.
You could imagine something like if you had something out of a Swagger API call where you know the JSON schema. Now you want to generate specs from the JSON schema, something like that.
Yeah, we had to write some custom generators to do that, and the place I'm working at now does that as well, and it would be nice to have those things built in, make it a lot easier. But we recently, the context would be great. We recently had to go through and basically make all of our specs optional, which sort of defeats the purpose.
Yeah.
So, at that point, you're mostly just communicating to other people what the shape of the data you expect is, not necessarily validating it within the system. So if you can have that, the context to me sounds like the most valuable part of this, as long as it's implemented in a way that's easy to maintain.
For sure. To be honest, like what you're saying about how it just is for communicating, to me that's been the reason why I haven't used spec more.
Because you work alone?
Well, yeah, I guess so, but it's more because I feel like what people do with spec, the problem they're trying to solve. Who cares about other people?
What's documentation?
My code is correct from the beginning. There's no need to talk about it.
Work it out, bitches.
Come on, it's not fair because I used Clojure for 8 years before spec came out. So it would be a, I don't know, surprise if it was there's this missing thing that now makes Clojure so great. But I guess I feel like the uses I've seen for it have been a way to a way to like systems are getting messy and out of control, and there's so many different kinds of maps, and people are not like able to mentally manage them anymore. So instead of sitting down and designing it, applying some kind of design, they just want some system to just make sure it works, just make sure it checks. And so then what happens is it just kind of, because now you're writing more code that assumes all the same keys and stuff and structure, it's like now it's even more cemented and harder to manipulate, to design it better, to move it to a better design. So I feel like that's what's happening. That people are using spec to get correctness without having to actually do any design. That's what I see.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's why we kind of use it in a light kind of way, so that we don't pay that kind of cement tax, you know.
Right. Cool. Should we move on? Anyone else something to say on Spec 2?
Did Alex give any hint of like where things are with Spec 2?
Yeah, well, I think in the talk he said that it should be before the conj, but maybe not. So
Okay, all right.
yeah. Soon, I think is the vibe, you know. Yeah.
So Spec Alpha is going to be Spec Alpha forever, and now there's Spec Alpha 2.
Or Spec 2 Alpha.
Yes.
Yeah,
it's Spec Alpha 2. I just Googled it.
Oh, okay.
Oh, it is?
So yeah, it's a new name. You know, they're following the Clojure guideline of just making a new name, a new thing.
Yeah.
And keeping the old one around.
I do like the permanent lesson here, according to the differences from Spec Alpha page on the wiki, is that everything is subject to change.
Yeah, I want to see Alpha out of the name. That's for sure. Yeah. Okay.
It's just his name now.
Yeah.
Like you're Ray. This is Alpha.
Yeah. It's like Alpha Centaurus. Yeah. Spec Alpha.
Yeah, it's just Spec Alpha. Yeah.
Man.
I kind of wonder about the subject of like everyone might have code that depends on the current version of Spec, and like if it's your own project, you can say let's just migrate our own project. But if it's like a library that uses it, then
our Funding Circle's Kafka library uses it. Jackdaw uses Spec, and it's actually what we use Spec for here at my current workplace as well. Is validating inputs and outputs of Kafka producers and consumers. Which it's very good for that, but that library relies extensively on Spec as the validation.
Well, Mia, you should have read the README, which said this.
Everything is subject to change.
Everything is subject to change.
Yeah.
Very Buddhist.
And really, computers, you know?
I just wonder if it's going to create like a fork where it's like, oh man, my stuff's all on the original Spec. And
so now everything's going to have a 2 that uses the new Spec, and then leave the old one there.
Do you think Spec is a bit like a GPL? You know, it's totally viral.
Maybe.
Like GPL v3, you know?
Maybe. I don't know. I don't use Spec, so like it's really hard to like. There's a lot of stuff out there, right? Like Spectaculous and Expectorate.
You made that up.
Yeah, I made that one up. But there's a bunch, right? What's the one that gives you better error messages using the Spec? Yeah, I don't use any of these things. So anyway,
I've got to say one of the things that's worth saying. Yeah, we don't use any of the ecosystem, and that's a bit of a shame because it would be quite nice to, you know, if Spec was solid, then you could think about investing in the ecosystem. But you can't do that. Well, I don't know. What do you do, Mia? Are you an ecosystem consumer?
I don't really know what you mean by that.
Well, like he says, like things that check error messages or things, things that build on top of spec that you can then rely on.
No, not so much. I think it's a pity, right? I mean, that is,
Yeah.
marking it as alpha says don't use it. It says subject to change, don't rely on it, etc. But you still have all these people who relied on it because it was a necessary tool. And it's just a real pity there's no middle ground between, like, well, we told you it was alpha. What were you thinking? Like, part of it being an alpha and it being widely embraced and adopted was you needed people to use it to figure out what use cases were good for it. And you needed to have that wide adoption to see how to improve it. I mean, that's what alpha's for. But that wide adoption comes at the expense of the community that was built around it, and a lot of people were afraid to adopt it and use it for those reasons. So
agreed. And like people say that like it is production quality, like it's stable, it works.
Yeah.
But it's just this. It's been 3 years or something, 3.5 years. Like people are just, I don't know. They're just waiting. Like one day we're gonna get a version 2, and we'll have to migrate over. So.
Yeah. Well, while we were in Finland, actually, the Matosin people have made their own version of spec. They've made some schema thing that they use in their router, and they use in their code as well. So some people, after 3 years, they've just decided, we're giving up, and we're just going to be inspired by it, and be inspired by schema and other things, and we're just going to make our own. Which is a shame, but I, in some respects, like you said, Eric, it's a Lisp, so people can do what they want,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, so this really throws a monkey wrench in my idea of Clojure alpha stuff, because a few years ago I would have said, oh yeah, I'll just jump in and use a Clojure alpha thing if I need it, and I'll, it's pretty reliable, and I'll be able to give some feedback on it. Because I remember when Atom Watchers were alpha. Do y'all remember that? It wasn't that long ago, maybe 5 or 6 years ago. Atom Watchers were alpha.
They were in there in core, but marked as alpha.
Exactly. They were in core, they were shipped, but then the docs all said, subject to change. And so I didn't use them. I was just like, oh, this, but then I think because no one was giving feedback and they felt like, well, it hasn't changed in a while in a couple versions, let's just ship it. And so then I used it and I realized, oh man, these don't do what I expect them to do. And so I put a Jira ticket in, and part of me thinks like, if I had put that Jira ticket in before it went, there's a more chance that it would have actually made a change, because as alpha, it means there may be more open to change and thinking about how it's supposed to work. And so then, that colored how I thought about Clojure alphas. I was like, okay, just jump in and use it, give them feedback, ride the changes you have to, that are going to come. But then this has been 3.5 years, and I'm really glad I didn't use it in a bunch of places.
Well, but it still is production quality, so maybe people will just keep using it.
Yeah, and eventually migrate to 2 if they need one feature or something. Yeah. I mean, maybe it's not as sad a story as I'm trying to paint it right now, because it's been 3.5 years. They've been using it. There's tools built on it. And that feedback is what caused 2 to be so different and, so much more powerful. So
I'm not sure. I think Rich had a better idea, and I think that's what happened.
Right, but he said it came from seeing how people were using spec, and he's like, that's not what I meant, and that's, I see what you're trying to do, and oh yeah, spec won't really help you with that. Stuff like that.
Maybe we're just being too impatient. 5 years from now, you won't care.
That's true.
You won't be programming 5 years from now.
Yeah, 5 years from now, we'll all be underwater. Like,
That's true, too.
With our cyborg enhancements that are written in Rust.
5 years from now, there won't be
Waterproof
computers.
language, yeah. Rust is not a waterproof language. So.
Oh no! I
But
think
I
that's a
generally think
dad
it was a
joke.
good thing to. Generally think it was a good thing to say, okay, things are going to change. Because I think a lot of us were complaining that it was alpha. Come on, it's been out for years. What are you going to do? It's meant to be subject to change, and nothing's changing. So come on, ship it
Right,
already.
right.
You could go program in Swift.
And then it
live in that
changed,
world.
and then it changed, and okay, in that sense, they were,
We were warned.
Aha! I
Yeah,
told
yeah.
you.
yeah. So Spec 2 also subject to change. We're just operating on a different timeline. We're used to
Yeah.
things kind of being alpha for a month or
minute.
two or whatever. But I remember actually, I'm sure you guys remember as well. Maybe it's me or not. But when Gmail first came out, it was marked as beta. And it was marked as beta for almost 10 years. I think. It was crazy. Everyone was like saying, "What the heck is going on here?" And then silently they moved it out of beta. But I think in the end, that was people reckon that was down to like government not being able to buy it or something like that. It had nothing to do with the product.
It was a really stable product. I mean, compared to other web apps, Gmail is pretty good. Pretty good.
Yeah.
And was Hangouts in beta? No.
Oh, subject to change.
But it wasn't in beta.
It wasn't in
alpha.
beta. No. Was it an alpha? No. It was just
What
Hangouts.
about-
They lied to us.
What about Google
Plus
Plus?
was not. That was not.
Google Plus was in. Oh,
That was in strategic center place. Everything. Everyone's
Everything.
bonuses depended on Google Plus. Yeah. Oh man.
talk about Google minus. All right. Let's go. All right, so we didn't talk about Strange Loop, did we?
Not yet.
You went to Strange Loop, right, Mia?
Yeah, it was great. Wow, it's great. I love Strange Loop.
Awesome.
And I got to ride a train. That was great. Did you get to ride a
You
train
rode a
to
train?
Clojure Train? I wanted to ask. Did you get to ride a train?
Yes and no. I flew to Finland, but then I took a bus into town, a metro, and then on the way home I took a train out to the.
Okay,
So-
all right.
I experienced every form of transport in that trip, basically.
Bicycle, moped.
Well, actually, I think there is
Roller
there's a big
skate.
thing with these scooters now, and I think Alex had to go on a scooter. But I'm not a fan of the scooters, and I avoided Uber. That was a win, in my opinion.
We
But the
ended up-
train? What was the train? You rode a
The train was.
Yeah,
I took the,
there's- oh,
I
no.
took the train.
So-
Yeah, go on.
There's trains all over your continent. You're
Yeah.
very lucky. You should say hello to them. But
Love 'em.
there is a train between the airport and downtown St. Louis. You can ride the train right to
I've
Strange
done
Loop.
that before. Yeah.
Oh, it was amazing.
Yeah, it's
And
great.
it's air
Train?
conditioned.
What kind of train are you talking about?
It's a light rail.
It's like a
Yeah, okay.
it's like a commuter train.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. It was wow. What
That's
a
really
what a
nice.
fabulous experience. Yeah, and that was just the train. The conference also great. It was really nice to hear what people are doing with computers that wasn't for their job, which Strangeloop's very good about that. And I think, you start to feel, I was starting to feel kind of burnt out on programming. It felt like I hadn't really, not only like I wasn't really making anything for myself, but like I didn't really know what I would make. And Strangeloop was really, really good for seeing other people's passion projects that they were working on. It's like, oh, this is fun. And there were a bunch of computer music talks, which was great. That was how I ended up talking to people at AlgoRave. Dave Yarwood presented on Alda, which is his Clojure-based computer music language. And it's so cool. You can write music in Clojure. But you can also write music in markup. He has like a markup style syntax for it, which I thought was really interesting. but his presentation was he was trying to make this command line tool for playing music, and he wanted to write it in Clojure, but he ended up having to actually write the command line part in Go. And we were talking about whether that might have been a candidate for a Graal VM had Graal VM existed when he was designing it. So that was a really good talk. I recommend that if you're a Clojure fan, you go and look at Dave Yarwood's talk from Strange Loop. It was called like Alda and Clojure, a dynamic relationship, or something like that.
Was it because
Cool.
it wasn't fast enough that he had to switch to Go? Or?
Yeah, the startup time was just too slow. And when you're dealing with computer music, you have to be able to you have to think
real
about
time.
timing. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
real time. So, oh, wow. I ended up talking with one of the papers we love guys about this language called Chuck, which is like a really punny, strongly timed computer music language based on C++. And that Chuck compiles all it. You write your music onto different threads. It calls them shreds. And then it schedules them at compile time and then plays them back in real time. So you program the time into your music. And
And it shreds them.
yeah, so
Nice. Shred drill.
that was, but yeah, just really great artistic talks. There was a big focus on kind of social responsibility of programmers, which I thought was really interesting. And, like the main stage at one point was given to this talk that was about how this lone Ruby on Rails developer became the computer friend of an organization that helps hide refugees from ICE.
Wow.
And it was really cool that she had the stage to talk about how people using computers in their own time to do things that they weren't getting paid for can lead to burnout, and also how to kind of get the community involved in that. And that is, anyone can contribute to the GitHub project. It is open source. So that's another talk. It's the community-driven development talk. But yeah, it was the priorities were very nice.
Yeah, that's an awesome conference. So I haven't been since it was like expanded. Doesn't it have like 2 places where talks are happening now?
Yeah.
2 buildings.
And it's so hot. So I think everyone kind of camps out in one building each day.
Uh-huh.
But
Like
yeah,
it's hot, like the weather.
outside, yeah.
Okay.
It's wow, so hot. I was not prepared.
What are you talking about? Like 90s?
Like 85.
That's not hot. That's a cool day. It's like 90 something over here right
But you
Oh my
chose to live in New
goodness.
Orleans, so.
Yeah, sure. All right, sorry. I just wanted to outburst. I'm sure if I go to San Francisco, I would be like in a jacket right now.
Well, yeah, we're all in a jacket. So San Francisco is always within 10 degrees of room temperature.
Consistent. Yeah.
Well, that's nice.
That's why we're here. But yeah, I really liked Strange Loop. Lots of good Clojure talks. Got to say hello to a lot of people. That was great. You should all go next year.
Yeah, I've been on a moratorium from Strange Loop. It's just so overwhelming for me. Like there's so many good talks. I always feel like I'm missing the good ones. There's so many people that I want to talk to, and then I feel bad because I only wind up talking to a few. It's like I don't know. I would rather have something smaller and more intimate, but I think it's just such an important conference. I should be there.
It was every single person I talked to had something interesting to say. Like, just you could stand in line, you stand in the lunch line, and someone in the lunch line wants to talk about computer music.
That's cool.
That's great.
Yeah. Very cool. Awesome. And that's run by Alex Miller. Clojure.
Thank you, Alex Miller.
Clojure superhero.
Are we going to? I'm going to Conch. Who else is going to Conch?
I want to go. I'm trying to make it happen.
Okay.
I haven't been in a couple years, so I feel like
I'd like to go, but we'll see how work is. But if it's good, I've never been before, and I would like to.
Yeah, now that it's in Durham, I don't know. I feel like I've never been there. It's a lot of reason to go.
It's nice.
It's
And no trains, unfortunately.
Mike, you going?
I don't know. I've never been, so maybe I should keep my record of not going.
No, that's
Oh.
dumb.
That record. I went to high school in Durham, so yeah, I know the area.
But you never been to a conch?
Never have, no.
Oh, okay.
You
They're
might be
always up first,
surprised. You might be surprised by Durham when you go back.
Yeah, it's probably changed a lot.
Yeah.
Okay. What about this last thing? Mike, you put this on the list. RRB trees.
Oh yeah, I thought
Clojure?
it'd be cool just to give a shout out to Andy Fingerhut. He for whatever reason it seems like he took on an interest in maintaining core RRB vector. That's my speculation. I mean, I don't know if you know what that library is. It's
I think
so
you
it's-
should explain it.
So okay, so there are some. It's basically It was written by Michael Marzek. I don't know how to pronounce his last name. So he
Mikhail,
wrote.
by the way, it's not called
Mikhail.
Michael.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So he wrote all these. Like he's the guy who wrote the persistent data structures in ClojureScript. My understanding. Like previously, it used to be like copy on write. So he has all the these really sophisticated data structures, and core RRB vector is one where if you have a couple of vectors and you say you want to concatenate them, right? The normal vectors in Clojure, that would, I guess, be an order in operation to concatenate two vectors. And core RB vector has a different kind of implementation internally that lets you do that, I guess, logarithmically or faster, So anyway, it's a kind of a pseudo important side set of data structures that you can use for things. And Andy Fingerhut's basically been going to town on it. If you look, and then there's lots of commits, and he's given that project some love, which I think is great.
Andy
makes you wonder,
Fingerhut
like, why-
also, you might recognize him from Clojure docs because he's like
Yeah.
got an example on every single core function.
Yeah.
He might be like the top. Let's see.
By the way, Mikhail, it turns out, it's called Mikhail Marchek. He was at Clojure Tray. He goes to quite a lot of these conferences, and I often have a chat with him. He's a super nice guy, and so I'm sure he'll be happy that his work is being carried on.
Yeah. And it is, like I said, I think that he wrote also core data AVL, like a set of maps, alternative map, sorted map implementations. I think those are like, if you had to think like what data structures exist outside of Clojure core, those two come to my mind of things that you might use if you're trying to solve a problem and you need certain performance characteristics.
Yeah, I mean, if you're doing a merge sort, you need to concat the vectors at the end. Seems like a good thing, no?
Yeah.
Or no, you won't concat them, would you? Never mind.
I could that.
I think the READMEs have some motivating use cases.
Yeah. And that kind of work is kind of tireless, right? I mean, so props to Andy Fingerhut for going in and carefully like checking patches and make sure they all work properly. And, and that's a complicated set of code. It's not easy to it's not trivial to go in there and like change something without potentially breaking things. So, yeah, that's great that he's doing that. It's like a lot of effort that you don't really get. You don't. People might not know that you're even doing it. So hats off to
Sure.
you for doing that. Yeah.
And I think it's one of those things where testing is more arduous than writing a code in many respects.
Yeah.
Right, and then you want it to be fast, right? So you got to do all sorts of benchmarking, figure out what little thing is not fast. Yeah, that's really hard work. Okay, well, we're at the end of our 32 show note, episode 32. Any other things people want to talk about?
I pull for you guys.
There was a cool optimization that landed on ClojureScript today, which is
Oh.
if you ever do a search of a value onto a map, which I think you've probably done that, right, in Clojure
A couple times.
There's an optimization that actually makes that go like 24% faster in V8.
Whoa.
So that's like maybe it's a micro optimization if you think about it at that level, but you do a lot of associates, right? So maybe that will help. Who knows?
But I mean, you could also look at it like, why was it so slow before?
Yeah, so the optimization has to do with knowing that you're associating onto a specific Clojure type that's known to implement iAssociative. And if you look, if it's one of those kind of things, if you put a little type check in there to say like, is this iAssociative, then upon knowing that, then the code that's generated could be much faster for that specific case, which happens to be almost always what you're doing, right? You're always associating things onto maps which implement iAssociative.
Oh, so you make the happy path faster, and then
For in that case, yeah.
maybe the unhappy path is a little slower.
That's
Like
a
if you're
little slower,
associating onto something like you shouldn't be associating onto,
right?
like a number or a string.
Yeah, so it's like, I don't even know the cases where you wouldn't even be implementing that interface, right? That's kind of a weird question. Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyways, if it's kind of a cool mixture of a little type check added in there to do that, and then even a little bit of type inference that automatically happens after that to automatically take advantage of the fact that it passed that if condition test. Anyway, it's one of those kind of things where if you look at the generated code, you're like, oh, if this code was written this way, it can actually be faster. So it's kind of surprising that there still exists things like that in the core libraries, right? But
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I guess JavaScript probably has all these little micro optimizations you can use. JavaScript you're not going to know about.
Yeah,
Well,
and then there's
that's one of the problems with Mike's work in some respects, because the JavaScript VMs is doing some calculations, some working out of this stuff. But I guess when you've got a higher level language, sometimes you generate code which is just hard to optimize.
This is really...
like this is probably taking advantage of some optimization that if you just typed in JavaScript, that's the normal way you would do it. But because it's a compiler, it's just outputting something that works, but not necessarily the way that they've optimized for, right? Sorry, Mia, you said something, but I couldn't hear you.
Mike, if that was what it was.
Oh, so the particular optimization, it falls into that category where this one fortunately made things faster on V8. That was the most dramatic change, was this 24% speed up. On JavaScript core, it was like 10% faster, which is still pretty good. And on SpiderMonkey, it didn't seem to have any effect at all. And the good thing is that this is like a pretty simple one because it didn't slow things down anywhere on any of the VMs. So. But yeah, as to why it does this, I don't know. A lot of times you just have to, it's that thing where you just have to run it and see, like what do the modern VMs do with this stuff.
So you're just doing an extra if check before you do the assoc?
So yeah, so if it passes the if check, then you can use the if I remember right, it's the dash assoc, which is like the actual name of the method on the interface, because you know it implements that interface.
Instead of going through the protocol.
Instead of going through,
The protocol.
otherwise you end up with this like dynamic code that like dispatches based on what it is and whatnot. So it effectively eliminates some runtime code that has to be in there, because it knows,
Right.
that type check costs something to do it. But once you've done that, then you can eliminate further
Other
type
code,
check and
yeah.
just kind of cut to the chase and just associate directly onto it. Yeah, so it's cool.
Huh.
There are these little gems hidden in the library that you can, if you can find things that will make.
I don't understand why you can't just call like dot hyphen assoc, or dot. Yeah, is that what it's called? Dot or.
Oh,
dot
okay, yeah.
assoc.
So
like, why can't you just call it and why
Okay,
check?
So there
Let-
is
just let
there is
the
a
fall. What is it? Like the chips.
chips
The
fall, they
chips.
The chips.
Yeah. Chips fall where the cookie crumbles.
Yeah, so there are so assoc has different arities, right? So there is a static dispatch for the particular arity that's being done at that point. And the optimization also has to do with statically dispatching to that arity, calling a dot, whatever. And it's this big, long, mangled name, right? But
Right.
that little type check lets you then get away with that.
Huh. Okay.
Yeah. I don't feel like I did it justice explaining how the optimization works.
To associate anymore.
Maybe you got clipped off in what you just said. Just use sign language. That works.
So everyone do 24% more associates to cancel out the optimization
Yeah.
that we just got.
Associate's a good thing to use, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like free association.
Yes.
Wow, wow, wow.
24% faster.
Yes.
We're done?
Everyone.
I think we're done.
I think we're finished for today.
We bored ourselves. That's pretty bad.
Next time, figure out the REPL.
Yeah, we got to do a REPL. It's true. This is a long
I think we
conversation.
can muster that technology. Yeah.
We can do it.
No, we haven't mustered Discord yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, we need something better. That's for sure. Yeah.
So y'all, all the
sucks.
people watching, let us know, because we're doing Discord because it has the like everybody visible at the same time thing. But then I can't rearrange them. I can't figure out how to do it. The only thing I can do is like choose one person to be, the only thing visible, and then I can make that go back. But when Google Hangouts, it's always only one person at a time. So it's there's no perfect solution here. But yeah, let us know what you think, and we'll figure this out.
You can @ us on Twitter at Apropos Cast.
Yes. Message us.
Please tell us what to do. We need guidance. We don't understand technology.
Yeah, well, I think it's one of these things where group messaging is essentially becoming a kind of luxury item.
Yeah.
So,
Zoom
you
IPO'd, right? That's why.
Yeah. So, Slack is expensive. And
Stuff isn't
Zoom,
free?
Skype,
Like,
stuff isn't free.
instant video communication is not free? I don't understand.
Well, it kind of is, but it's just like streaming it isn't free. You have to. I mean, maybe
I
we
don't
just
know
have to
why.
bite a bullet and just chip in a few quid. But seems egregious.
Yeah. So yeah, what we're talking about is Zoom will stream to YouTube, but only if you pay them $15 a month. Something like that.
Yeah.
You have to have the $15 a month plan,
Mm.
which is probably more reliable than what we're doing.
Could pay them
now.
$15 a month, yeah.
I think we should just
Offline.
chip in. I think that Yeah, we'll work out some product because I think this is not good enough. It's not good enough for us, and I don't think it's any audience that we've built up so far is just like going to bail on us if we carry on with this. So, and
Can't hear us.
people coming new
Right.
to it and be thinking, yeah, but like you said, we want to do a REPL, and this is going to be trash. Yeah. So we'll work. We'll work on it. We'll make a better solution for like. If not the next show, then the one after that for sure. So it's definitely number one on the to-do list.
Hold on, team.
Yeah, we'll get there. And you just have to sit through a lot of bad audio and bad video for weeks on end.
Yeah, we love you so much. We're gonna pay money to talk to you.
Yeah. Meanwhile, send us show topics if you want us to discuss something, all that stuff. We really appreciate all the feedback we're getting from y'all, and we want to talk about what do you want to hear about. So send us some questions, stuff like that.
Until next time.
Yeah, till next time, hit the subscribe button and find us on Twitter, apropos_cast, and we'll try to tweet out when we're about to go on. All right, thank you.